Hello and welcome to the therapy show Behind Closed Doors. This is episode number 203. My name is Kellie Barratt. I'm here with Bob Cooke and here,
Hi,
hello. And today we're going to talk about the importance of grounding and structure in the therapy room.
wonderful title. You like me to start? Some of my thoughts?
Well, over to you, Bob, because it's a very interesting topic, this. I'm not quite sure which way you're going to start.
Okay, so in one way to look at it is very interesting, is that I do most of the 2-day TA courses,
Mm,
many, many years, which talks about the early principles of transaction analysis and ego states and different levels of disturbance of people and everything else. And often the most disturbed people are people who lack structure in their lives and who
mm,
can't suit and find it hard to soothe themselves
yeah.
because they haven't had um, a model or an interject of consistency and structure. So they've got quite a chaotic system, and therefore they find it very hard to soothe themselves in terms of distress. So that's
Mm,
just interesting in itself. Also, Eric Byrne talked about what he called structure hungers
mm,
and how important, it is for people to have structure, stability, and consistency in their lives.
mm,
And therapists, when they take somebody on for therapy,
mhm.
it's going to be most of them, it's going to be 50-minute hours
Yeah.
at the same time every week in the
Mhm,
same place.
mhm,
So the structure's put in, the reliability's put in, the
mhm.
dependability's put in, and often the clients that come to us have had the opposite.
Yes, because I wasn't sure whether the title you were going to talk about structure in the session, or but do you mean so kind of like the psychological structure of
Both,
okay.
both,
Mm,
both. Um, just at the moment talking about psychological structure
yeah.
and how often if there's been a chaotic parenting system
Mm,
or a chaotic system psychologically where the significant others haven't been constant, haven't been dependable, haven't provided structure, then the client, i.e., the person here, is left often with a chaotic system and under stress will feel distressed
mm,
because they haven't got a soothing process because they're just left with chaos. I mean, I think that's interesting psychologically. Now, in terms of what Byrne also mentioned, structure hungers, where we need to have an aspect of structure in our lives in terms of dependability and consistency and psychological predictability. And I think that's matched up. That's what I've just said.
mm,
In the therapy room, where therapists will see the same person at the same time, the same
mm,
venue, and the same structure. And the more disturbed a person is,
mhm,
the more they need that structure.
mm. So we provide the psychological structure, and
Mm.
that enables the client to feel safe psychologically.
And secure.
Mm, mm,
Because you just imagine it. And I do all the assessments, and people who listen to this podcast know at the Institute, and people come along. And when I pass them on to therapists, therapists will take clients on at the same venue, the same person, obviously them, the
mm,
same time, and it's 50-minute hours.
mm,
You imagine for disturbed people, particularly, I think, who haven't got a particularly, strong adult, if they had to remember not only what hour it is, but when it is, where it is, that type of unpredictability, I think can lead to an unhealthy system.
yeah, yeah. I do that, and I guess we're trained to do that. But some clients are a little resistant to the same time. I mean, some clients work shift work, don't they? But some, the idea of the same time every week. For some clients, in therapy they tend to be all right, but in their lives, I notice that they can be a bit resistant to structure. So is that because they haven't got the system in place already? And
Often that's to do with the parenting,
mm,
where their identity and the way they see the world
mm,
isn't from a structured place.
mm,
You see, I think that leads to problems.
yes, I agree.
And because they haven't got a level of consistency and structure and regulation
Mm,
already psychologically.
mm. Yeah. And our structure lives in our parent ego state. That's the
Was provided by the parents.
mm,
So a significant other person provides a structure,
mhm,
provides boundaries, provides consistency, provides predictability as well as nurture.
mm,
Now, if those conditions aren't there, then the child often feels insecure and unsafe,
yeah.
and they're left to create a structure for themselves in often a chaotic background,
Mm,
and that can cause problems.
yeah. Yeah. So what kind of things might you see in the assessments?
Where a person lacks structure hunger, you mean, and
Mm,
lacks that type of significant parenting, which provides safety, a secure base, a sense of structure, a sense of, um, well, that would be the person, for example. I mean, there's many red flags to it. Not they'll usually tell you, by the way.
mm,
Anyway, the person who might turn up 10 minutes late for the session,
mm,
or 50 minutes late for the mental health assessment, or early, whatsoever, or that's because often they expect, how can I explain it? They don't expect structure.
yeah. Okay.
They don't expect often that important to that the therapist would want to put them first in terms of structure or consistency or dependability. So in terms of their script, they'll have a script which is very different from the predictable, consistent structures that I'm talking about.
And it's not a malicious thing, is it? It's a clients they just kind of might forget. So it's not a malicious is perhaps a harsh word, but it's not a purposeful thing. It's just
No,
not really
no,
having it.
no, it's not. It's usually confirming their own script because
Mm,
that's how it is in the world, because that's their history.
yeah.
It's a psychological process. Now, interesting, Kelly, when we say the word forget,
Mm,
now I've been a psychotherapist for a long time, and I know you have for a long time. So when somebody says the word forget, my
mm,
antennae raises its head.
mm,
I don't know if there's such a thing as forget in the
mm,
psychological terms,
mm,
because when somebody, yes, you're correct. People can, yeah, forget the timing, forget this. But the bigger question is, how come they are? How
yes.
come they aren't putting the mental health system as a top priority? How
Mm,
come they, that's the question.
yeah.
It might not happen.
Mm,
So when
yeah.
people say forget, is there ever such a thing?
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
a, that's
Yeah.
a, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Because perhaps, you know, the people listening to this podcast say, oh, XXX. But I'm not sure we ever forget things. Now, we might forget things. Like I'm now 74. Things often get quite overwhelming. I can say, oh, I forgot this, I forgot that. But you know something? Such an important thing as a mental health assessment, such
Mhm.
an important thing as a therapy session.
Mm.
Would I forget? Well, I might do. But as an interesting reflection for a therapist or counselor to think about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. But I'm always quite surprised how many clients don't use a calendar system, for example. So they tend to hold a lot of their appointments just in the head.
Well, if I was the therapist in that place, I'd question that.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
Oh, if I heard that, if that was the case,
Yeah.
and somebody turned up, I don't know, 10 minutes early, quarter of an hour late because, or even got the wrong day.
Mm,
Oh, because, I hold it all in my head. I'd be asking, oh, right, is that something familiar in your life that you hold important dates and really vital meetings in your head? That must be
mm.
quite exhausting.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'd probably question that process.
Like why are you making your life so hard?
What's
You know,
that
but
about?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think structure is vitally important. So, for example, in other areas, when I run courses, they
Mm,
say start at 10 o'clock, end at 5 o'clock, or
mhm,
start at 9:30 and end at 4:30. I wouldn't dream of starting 10 minutes earlier.
mhm,
I wouldn't dream of starting 10 minutes late.
mm.
The people that come late come late.
Yeah. Yeah.
If there's a structure that provides safety, it
Mm,
provides security,
mm,
it provides consistency, it provides predictability,
mm,
and people will feel secure then.
mm. And that's boundaries, isn't it? That's our job as the therapist to hold those boundaries really firm.
And that's what the parents should do.
Yes.
That's the bit, you see. If you turn it back. So, for example, in this world, I know where people have may have, uh, how can I explain? Mother and father parent from different places, or they've split up, or you know, the mother has the child for 2 days, or the father for 3 days, or whatever it is.
Mm,
I know it's higher and higher number of people um, might come from that place nowadays, and perhaps when I was born in
mm,
1950, I think divorce and separation is much more common.
mm,
But it's interesting. So when you say to a client who comes in for mental health assessment, "Oh, tell me a little bit about your parents," and I always say, "Are they still together?"
mm,
And invariably, a person will answer yes, or they may answer, and more people do answer what I'm
mm,
going to say now. No, they split up 15 years ago or something. So I said, "Oh, right. So what sort of age were you proxies?" And we find out about that.
mm,
And then I say, and then who brought you up, mate? Who was the major caretaker? Oh, mother.
mm,
That's okay. So did you lose in touch with your dad then? No, no. He used to look after us. They say for 2 days of the week. Oh,
mm,
okay. So how did you get on with them both? Oh, fine, fine. Oh, right. So were the parenting on the same level? They both believe in the same values, and how, because what I'm after is the impact
mm,
of what it's like in one type of parenting and maybe in another type of parenting.
mm,
So I said, "Oh, it was fine with my dad. I could stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning and watch da 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 da. But when I'm with my mother, I have to be in bed at 8 o'clock." Yes,
mm,
completely different types of structuring.
mm. So quite confusing for a child.
Very confusing. And that often is played out in the therapy room.
Yes, with us as the therapist.
Yeah.
Mm,
So then they're into this situation. So therapists have structures
mm,
usually. So I used to
mm,
run psychotherapy groups, 6:30 to 8:30 every Monday and Thursday nights.
mm,
So I had a client on a Thursday would come on Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30. Now, if they're confused and they have a significant other parent which says, "Oh, well, it's all right to step to 2 o'clock in the morning," or whatever it is, they might enact that out with the structure in the therapy room. In other words,
mm,
turn up late or not turn up late at all, or whatever it
mm,
is. But also they have another voice in their head saying, "Well, I've got to be there at the right time." So they're often very confused.
mm. And so they is a bit like a seesaw, like they're managing both different sets of values, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you run a therapy group.
I
I
do,
used to do a bit
yes, yeah.
Is this a common what we're talking about here?
It's quite funny because my colleagues make fun of me and my very boundaried business contract. So I have an A4 page of everything that's expected in the therapy, and because I like that as a start off, so we can iron out any issues. So from the very beginning, I'm very boundaried. So and usually if a client is not going to work with a client, we work that out in the first 3 or 4 sessions. But usually, or most of the time, clients are okay with it. So they know what's expected. That if they're late and they're more than 15 minutes late, I'll cancel the session, but I'll still charge them, and a whole range of of systems that I've got in place. So the client knows where they stand, and if I'm honest, when I started out as a therapist, it was to enable me to remember of everything that I wanted to make sure
Mm, mm,
that I could remember.
mm,
But
mm,
as over the years as the client as things has happened with different clients, I've changed my business contract, so it's very clear, very clear.
mm.
So clients know what's expected.
Yeah, and I think Eric Byrne, the originator transaction analysis, talks about that in terms of structure hungers, and talks about structure hunger is an inevitable desire almost like
Mm,
oxygen for all of us. We need structure to
mm,
feel safe and
mm.
secure.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's there's those, or when clients and they want to stay up late because they're grabbing some time back from themselves, it's like a part of them is wanting to go to bed early, but a part of them is trying to grab some time for themselves back. But actually, the hope is, isn't it, that the nurturing parent part will will start to be, the volume will turn up on that one, and that they will take care of themselves. But the bonus of the business contract for me is that if a client's never been into therapy before, then they know how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And provides a secure base.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you know what you're getting. Well, the client knows what they're getting.
Yeah, we just think in terms of child development
Yeah.
theory.
Mm,
You all know that without a secure base, a sense of security, a
mm,
sense of grounding, a sense of boundaries, um, then psychological distress may follow.
mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. And who nobody is no wants psychological distress. So it's not something that anyone would aim for. So the boundaries
Yeah,
help.
that's right. And you see, even if a person's been parented in a completely different way that we just talked about,
Mm,
yeah, I would argue that if we did a thorough analysis of their script, their history, if you like,
mm,
we would find some structure
okay.
in what might appear a very chaotic process.
Mm. So they create their own.
Well, yeah, or the chaotic parent has a structure that, though it seems chaotic,
Mm.
has a structure of its own, which the child then starts to adapt to.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
The outsider,
Mm.
it seems chaos.
But the child knows where they are
Hmm.
within the
Yeah,
chaos.
that's what I'm trying to say, that
Yeah.
even in the most chaotic system,
Yeah.
there's often a consistent structure,
Yeah. Mm.
even though it seems chaotic.
Mm. Well, yes. Yeah. Well, we've all got a different idea of chaos as well, I guess.
Hmm. So I really am a believer in structures. I
Mm.
believe the human condition desires or there's a hunger for structure.
Mm.
If that isn't adhered to, then the client will feel insecure,
Mm.
they'll feel unsafe, and then what will happen is they'll act out in some way,
Mm. And usually sometimes with us in the therapy room.
always with us in the therapy room.
Mm.
I'm not saying they won't act out outside in some ways, but I'm talking about the therapy room here,
Mm.
and they'll always act out.
Mm. Mm.
So I know very well that in my groups again that I was talking about, which I ran for a long time, 6:30 to 8:30, Monday and Thursday, that you could almost see the clients looking at their watch. Perhaps they've worked or they haven't worked. I think it doesn't really matter here. Um, and checking that 8:30 was coming around because they knew it ended at 8:30.
Mm.
Now, if they hadn't done the therapy they wanted to do, then maybe that's another story. But they are pre-programmed almost to that structure of 2 hours.
Mm.
And I wouldn't go over it. And I
Mm.
wouldn't go earlier either. And the
Mm.
we start at 6:30 and at 8:30, full stop.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Back to the structures. And if you veer from that, um, then a lot of other acting out might happen from the clients actually in the group room.
Yeah. I tend to find that I think of it as as like an anchor in the week. So
Mm,
once that the regularity begins, that the client can usually, they know that therapy is coming, and so they're more able to hold on to themselves for longer periods of time in between the sessions
mm,
because they know that the therapy is coming. And I have quite a lot of holidays, so some clients struggle with that.
mm. Well, you need to tell them way in advance.
Oh, I do. As soon as I'm back from the first one, from the last one, I'm telling them about the next one. Absolutely, yeah, with lots of time.
Mm. Or they'll act out.
Yes, yes. Well, yeah, and get angry that I've not been there.
One of my favorite cult films from about 1992 with Bill Murray in it, who was the actor from Groundhog Day,
Yes, yeah,
and Richard Dreyfuss, who was another fantastic actor,
yeah.
favorite of mine. They were in this film. Now, I'm not particularly narcissistic, but the title of the film was "What About Bob?" And why I like it a lot is because Richard Dreyfuss plays the psychiatrist, or that's the American. This is an American, so in other words, the therapist, if you like.
Yeah.
And he was a narcissistic therapist.
Hmm.
Bill Murray played this paranoid, schizophrenic, obsessive compulsive, disturbed character. And it starts off with the present therapist that Bill Murray had wanted to get rid of him because he was such a pain. And so he phones up around his therapist, and I'm assuming this is built into the film, but he phones this narcissistic therapist who thinks, and strokes his ego and says, I'm retiring soon or whatever it is. Would you take him on because you're so wonderful? I can't remember the
Yeah,
total film.
yeah.
Anyway, the psychiatrist takes him on, and then Bill Murray, there's a lot in that. But the bit I wanted to get to is that I don't know how long Bill Murray had been working with Richard Dreyfuss, but it comes to holidays. And then Richard Dreyfuss suddenly says to Bill Murray, "Well, I'm going on holiday in 6 weeks' time, and as you know, it's a whole month because in America they have a month."
Mm.
And Richard and so I was smiling at the thought of it. Bill Murray, it's too abrupt for Bill, the Bob, I think the character's name, but anyway, Murray, and he feels abandoned and
Mm.
feels totally let down, and he follows the therapist to his home holiday. And I don't want to take anybody who's going to watch this. I don't want to take away the end,
Don't ruin it.
but it's very funny.
Yeah. Oh, I've never heard of it.
What about Bob? And we all know the importance of letting people know
Mm.
in the therapy counselling field
Mm.
when they're going on holiday.
Absolutely. Yeah. Vital.
Just reminded me of that
Yeah.
story. I've
Yeah.
watched that film so many times, and those actors are fantastic. But because I'm a therapist, and a bit like Busman's Holiday, I suppose, but I always smile at the issues around this and the attachment issues and things
Mm.
like that that come out of the wonderful script.
Mm. Yeah. I shall watch that.
What about Bob, is it?
Yes.
I really recommend it. But let's go back to the title of this podcast.
Mm.
I think it was Grounding and Structure, was it?
The importance of grounding and structure in the therapy room.
Yeah, they go together.
Mm.
Because if a person, how can I explain this? If not enough structure is put in by the therapist,
Yeah.
yeah, the client may feel ungrounded,
Yeah.
not safe,
Hmm.
and not secure,
Hmm.
and then they'll act out.
Yeah. And so if we hold those boundaries really firm, the client will feel safer and then start to trust us.
Yeah, and of course more grounded.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, grounding means a lot of things. We know the more disturbed a person is, the less fragile to the adult ego state, the less grasp they have on perhaps here and now reality. Now, those types of clients will need a lot of grounding.
Mm.
And if you don't have security,
Hmm.
you don't have hungers,
Hmm.
they will feel unsafe and act out even more.
Mm. Yeah. So it's our job to do that.
I think it really is our job to
Mm.
provide a safe, secure structure
Mm.
for the person to feel safe, to trust, as you said, to enable to do the therapy they need to do
Mm.
and get the results they need to do.
Yeah.
So I really do think structure, hunger, grounding, and boundaries are the staple diet, if you
Mm.
like, for a therapist
Mm.
and client.
Yes. Yes. I think
And I'll
that's
tell you something. Tell you something. I'm always saying this in training, and you'll know this from your training now. You've been around a long time. The the therapist and the counsellor that forgets that or pays lip service to all this will always pay the price down the line.
so if they don't hold the boundary.
They don't pay importance to structure,
Hmm.
holding boundaries,
Hmm.
recognizing the importance of grounding,
Hmm.
all those things in the service of safety and security. They'll pay the price later down the line. In the process, the therapist will act out.
Yeah.
And they will act out so they can actually get the structure and the grounding.
Yeah.
Really?
So the client is acting out, so the therapist will hold the boundaries.
We are, but the problem is if the therapist isn't paying enough importance.
Hmm.
So, for example, and beginning therapists do this a lot.
Mm.
I always get this in supervision. They come, a lot of therapists come to this profession almost like a sort of rescuer position.
Yeah.
They can solve the world or whatever phenomenon they have.
Hmm.
So, so what they may report back, something really vital was happening. I couldn't possibly stop at 8:30 because XXXX. So suddenly they're 5 minutes over time.
Hmm.
Next time is 10 minutes over time.
Mm.
And once that happens, there's a slippery road.
Mm.
For
Yes.
example, somebody who's got borderline traits
Hmm.
has a script of, you know, no time will be enough. Nothing's enough.
Yes. Yes.
So they'll
Yeah.
play this out and play this out. And then what happens is the therapist might go to supervision as a supervisor says, what? Till you go 10 minutes over time, this really isn't healthy. You need to go back to structure or whatever.
Hmm.
I'm making this up. This is I've heard, I know this happens.
Mm.
So then the therapist goes back and attempts to aim to half a day.
Hmm.
Then the person with the borderline traits often goes to a borderline rage and
Hmm.
say, you're letting me down. Last week you let it go to 10 minutes. Now look what's happening. I'm going to report you. This is an ethical issue. How dare you do this? I think you don't care for me at all.
Mm.
Or some rage like that. So it becomes harder and harder for the therapist to rectify a structure hunger position.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's better to hold the boundary from the beginning and then deal with what comes up, but don't.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now, the more disturbed people may, it doesn't always have to be the more disturbed people, but I'm thinking people who have got fragile adults often push boundaries because, and especially I was thinking borderlines, nothing's enough, so they want more time from the therapist.
Yeah.
And then they push the boundaries.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
the problem is the therapist that doesn't pay attention to those boundaries.
Mm.
It's a slippery road, not only for the therapist,
Mm.
but also for effective psychotherapy to actually happen
Mhm.
for the client.
But I don't know what you think about this, but I tend to think if I'm letting my boundaries slip a little bit, something's going on, and I need to, and then I look at
Yeah,
all my clients because I think if I'm doing it with if it's happening with one client, something's happening probably with all, and I need to go back into my own life
yeah,
and address because I'm probably not holding a boundary with myself actually,
absolutely.
letting it slip.
Absolutely. Another one, very, very common mental health assessments, they arrive 10, 15 minutes early. Now, regardless of what happens, so they might say, I can't park the car or I've come in early, even though there might be a temptation for many logistical reasons for me to say, oh, I'll start a bit early or something like that. I
Mm.
never do it. I start at the time we're supposed to start
Bang
because
on
that
time.
sets the model, which I hope therapists will follow down the line.
Mm. Well, what you have at MIP, which is great, is a waiting room. So they can get let in by the office and then they can wait in the waiting room. And I know in my new office, haven't got a waiting room. So the client has to wait outside until it's time.
Well, that's their fault.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you set it
Yes.
up in a contract like you just
Yeah.
talked about, you had earlier on, and it's boundaries, you tell them, don't come earlier, please, because we haven't got a waiting room, and you'll have to be there's a cafe across the road because I know
Yeah.
where you work from.
Yeah.
You can say if it's open, there's a cafe across
Mm.
the road.
Mm.
But I have other clients, so I won't be able to let you in, or however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
And they know
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Oh,
They'll
yeah.
feel safe, accounted for, secure. It's the therapists that don't pay attention to that. And trainees often have to learn from their own experience
Mm.
when they're
Yes.
moving to this compulsive caretaking role, which doesn't help anybody, actually.
Mm. Yeah, and I wonder if, as we're training and we're trying to accrue the hours, whether maybe some trainee therapists move into a place of I need to get the hours, so I'll do anything to help to move the client, or let the client keep shifting the time, or from a place of worry.
Yes, but if they do that, effective therapy won't happen, I don't think
Mm.
much. And
Mm.
secondly, there's a bit of cost to it.
Yeah,
And
I think
but you are right, absolutely right. There is that dimension to it, I think. And of course, trainee therapists have to learn.
yes,
I
yes.
learned by my mistakes. The
Mm.
best things that happened to me that I made mistakes,
Mm.
because from the mistakes and take the supervision, I can learn.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Nobody becomes, just a perfect therapist or counselor overnight. They will make lots of mistakes, and it's not that that's a bad thing. In fact, you will learn from those.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I fully agree. I've made lots of mistakes, and yeah, I've learned from them all. Yeah.
Mhm. And that's the way it should be, I think.
Mm.
And then I can hear somebody say in the back of my mind, perhaps listening to this, oh, what about the ruptures with the clients and things like that? But actually, it's from those ruptures and the therapist taking account of them, which is
Mm.
probably they never had in their history.
Mm.
Their parents or significant others, if in their chaotic system, might not have valued them enough to account for the ruptures.
Mm.
So it's like there's a learning experience.
Yes, and that is a beautiful segue, Bob, because our very next podcast is about ruptures.
Oh, that's next week.
So I don't know if you've done that unconsciously, but
Hopefully unconsciously.
the
I'm
next
glad.
chapter is ruptures and how to resolve them.
Well, that's a really big podcast. And in some ways, one of the most important podcasts I could have, or we could talk about really, because trainee therapists or even therapists, let's say all therapists, it might make ruptures. Oh,
Let's stop.
I'm hearing Jackie in my head to shut me up because it takes away, from next week and
Yes.
the anticipation of people coming back to listen to the podcast.
And that's actually a wonderful reminder for me to thank the listeners. Actually, I've had a lot of lovely messages of welcoming me, and as people have been sad to say goodbye to Jackie. But one listener did leave a message about keeping you on track.
Very hard to do. Absolutely, Jackie managed to do it more
Good
often than not.
skills.
But it's a challenge to you, Kelly. Yes, that's true.
Super. So should we say goodbye, Bob?
Yeah, we'll say goodbye, and I look forward to next week. So thank you.
And goodbye to you. Thank you too. Goodbye.
Listening to The Therapy Show, Behind Closed Doors podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We'll be back next week with another episode.